Distinguished delegates, excellencies, agenda item 3 of the 12th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development will commence soon. Please take your seats. Thank you. Distinguished delegates, excellencies, agenda item 3 of the 12th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development will commence soon. May I please ask you to take your seats? Thank you.
Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, a very good morning. Welcome to day 2 of the 12th Asia Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development. This morning we will proceed with agenda item 3, that is accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development through the voluntary national reviews. The document pertinent to this meeting is leveraging the voluntary national review process to enhance the role of the private sector in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is in ESCAP/RFSD/2025/4. The role played by the voluntary national reviews, VNRs, in the follow-up and review of the 2030 Agenda is more critical than ever. With countries preparing their second, third or even fourth report, we understand the impact the reviews can make, especially when meaningfully engaging stakeholders and when integrated in the policy cycle. Involving the private sector among other actors in this process is essential to ensure reports are impactful, inclusive, and anchored in evidence. Discussions under this agenda item aim to facilitate the exchange of good practices and lessons on how member states and stakeholders are utilizing the voluntary national review process to encourage more systematic engagement of the business community in the implementation of the 2030 agenda. Through an interactive panel, the agenda item aims to stimulate discussion on how to translate the recommendations outlined in the voluntary national review reports into action. To facilitate the discussions under this agenda item, we are honored to have Ms. Michaela Freeberg-Story, UN Resident Coordinator to Thailand, who will be moderating the panel discussion. It is therefore my pleasure now to invite the moderator and the speakers to the stage. And actually, Madam is already on stage, so the floor is yours, Madam.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. I'm sure you are all energized from the first day of the APFSD yesterday, and now we're moving into this third agenda item on the VNRs. As you all know, we are 5 years from the 2030 agenda. And yesterday, we identified a number of the key drivers, and the commitment from all delegates was clear. Today, we are, as the chair outlined to us, deep diving into the voluntary national reviews. The voluntary national reviews is a unique tool for all of us, as we know that they promote national ownership, transparency, and a multi-stakeholder engagement. Today's dialogue will really showcase this dimension of multi-stakeholder engagements. This year, there are 12 member states in the Asia-Pacific region that will be presenting their VNRs. The 12 are Bangladesh, Bhutan, Federated States of Micronesia, India, Indonesia, Japan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, the Philippines, and our host country, Thailand. All of them preparing VNRs as we speak here today. 5 of these states are already on their 4th, and others are doing their 3rd. There's a wealth of experience when it comes to preparing VNRs, and today's session will allow us to unpack that. Before we move into the panel session, I am honored to introduce to you Professor Shiva Rai Adhikari, the Vice Chairperson of Nepal's National Planning Commission, as he was key in Nepal's VNR, the 3rd VNR, which was presented last year. Please, Professor, allow me to hand you the floor. I believe you will move over to our podium and share with us some of your experiences and insights as it related particularly to partnership and private sector. Please, Professor, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, moderator. Mr. Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to express my sincere gratitude for the opportunity to share Nepal's experiences in accelerating the implementation of SDGs through VNR process. As we have crossed the halfway marks towards achieving 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, our sub-region finds itself a critical juncture. We have collectively addressed challenges across social, economic, environmental, and government fronts. Nepal has conducted 3 VNRs in 2070s and 2020 and 2024, which have played a crucial role in accelerating the SDGs implementation by systematically monitoring and assessing the progress across all goals, enhancing transparency and accountability in SDG implementation, and providing an opportunity to revisit, recalibrate priorities based on progress and emerging needs. As Nepal's third VNR, coincide with the preparation of 16th Development Plan, its findings and recommendations have been key inputs in shaping the development priorities for the next 5 years. The priority area of SDG acceleration outlined in the VNR are well integrated into the plan and are being implemented through various policies and programs. Additionally, a review of the SDGs need assessment, costing, and financing strategy is being undertaken to address the post-COVID financial requirements. The updated strategy for 2024 estimate that the total investment requirement for 2024 and 2030 is USD 163 billion, with an annual average of 23 billion per year. And by 2030, the SDG investment requires projected to its total in the 45% of GDP. At the midpoint of SDGs implementation, Nepal's progress has been mixed. 58% progress towards 2022 targets, 41% progress towards 2030 targets. Based on the current pace, Nepal is projected to achieve 61% of its long-term SDG goal by 2030. The government of Nepal, in collaboration with the private sector, has undertaken various initiatives to make strong partnership for SDG implementation, focusing on ending poverty and hunger, job creation and entrepreneurship development, and infrastructure development and clean energy production. The 2024 VNR report highlights the efforts to create the enabling business environment and provide training and entrepreneurship support to further engage the private sector in SDG achievement. The VNR process has been instrumental in ensuring inclusive participation, bringing together all tiers of government, that means 3 tiers of government, the private sector, non-government organization and development partners, international organization and civil society. These collaborative efforts have facilitated the resource mobilization, strengthened the partnership and enhanced the overall implementation of 2030 agenda. Nepal remains fully committed to accelerating SDG implementation and value for the VNR process as a key tool for fostering accountability and inclusive and progress. We firmly believe that regional cooperation and partnership are vital to achieve our development aspiration, and we stand ready to contribute to the collective global efforts in realizing the 2030 agenda. I sincerely thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those experiences that you shared with us here, Professor. I am now pleased to invite all the panelists to the floor, and I will transition myself so that we can have an interactive dialogue and session on partnerships focusing on the upcoming VNRs. Panelists, if I may, please. First of all, a warm welcome to all of our panelists for taking your seats here at the stage at this important dialogue. As I know we all agree, the 2030 agenda is by itself, in its entire design, a multi-stakeholder endeavor. And as we are moving towards the Financing for Development Summit later on in Sevilla this year, we know that private sector engagement will be key at a local level, a country level, and a global level to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. In 2023, 91% of global VNR reports reference private sector engagement businesses, from micro enterprises to multinational corporations. The engagement of private sector was evident and permeated the reporting. Private sector drive innovation, create jobs, and advance technology and support large-scale projects. It is essential that as we advance on the Sustainable Development Goals, we do it as a coherent global family for reaching the SDGs. Engaging businesses in the VNR process is therefore about creating a systematic approach to implementing the 2030 Agenda and turning recommendations into actions, creating a joint ownership of the agenda itself. Today, we have a distinguished panel, and I will introduce them. And then we will begin with a round of questions. I will pose a question each to the panelists, and you will have approximately 3 minutes to answer. I have been given strict instructions that I am the timekeeper. So you will have to excuse me in advance as I will be managing the time, but we are all keen to hear from you and your insights and experiences. So therefore, first, let me introduce Shigemi Ando, Director, Global Issue Cooperation Division from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan. Honored to have you here. Girilie Casimiro Igtiben, from the Director of Social Development Staff from the Philippines. Great to have you here as well. Thank you. David Teo, member of ESBN and Executive Director of SGpedia from Singapore. And Ms. Shi Yin Tan, Head of Programs from the UN Global Compact Network in Malaysia and Brunei. And Ms. Asel Dunganayeva, co-founder of the public foundation YIPAR from Kyrgyzstan. It's my great honor to have you all here, and thank you for being part of this panel. Therefore, Shigemi, if I may start by turning to you so that we get going to make sure that you get your 3 minutes and we stick to the time. Japan is right now conducting its third VNR, and you have been involved in the past, and you have gained a lot of insights and experiences. Some we've also heard here from Nepal. But what challenges and opportunities have you as a country faced in fostering the engagement, and how have you leveraged the experiences from the past VNRs to the work you're doing now? Please, over to you.
Thank you very much. Very kind and warm introduction. this is my first experience of UN panel, so I'm a bit nervous. But due to your warm, all friends. But due to your warm message, I feel now very relaxed. So, according to your question, I'd like to begin my intervention by explaining the role of multi-stakeholders, especially business sector in Japan, then the challenge and opportunity we face, and finally the role of VNR for Japan's SDGs progress. And the first one is the multi-stakeholders role in Japan. Japan established the SDGs Promotion Roundtable in 2017 for fostering the cooperation with the multi-stakeholders. The members of the roundtable include business sector, civil society, consumers, cooperative society, labor union, youth, academia, mass media. And in the roundtable discussion, all Japanese ministries also join. So through the VNR process, the roundtable as well as the intergovernmental process plays a major role. And I believe the strong commitment and devotion of the member of roundtable is the strength of Japan's SDGs implementation. And one of the good examples of the active participation of multi-stakeholder in Japan, including VNR, is, I believe, the wide recognition of SDGs in Japanese society. According to the survey of 2023, more than 90% of people recognize the SDGs in Japanese society. It's a very good, very good rate. And you said this is our third VNR. The first one happened in year 2017. And probably at the first stage, one of the most powerful stakeholder is Pikotaro. Do you know as a Japanese performer, Pikotaro? Maybe you remember a short movie. This is a pen, this is an apple pen.
Yes.
And you remember, okay, very good. And he joined our HLPF with our foreign minister, Mr. Kishida, and he showed his special performance for SDGs promotion. So he plays a very big role to promote Japanese recognition in Japanese society. And he is a very good stakeholder for Japanese promotion of SDGs. And by the way, Japanese business sector, private sector, Keidanren, Japan Federation of Economic Organization, that is the one covering all major Japanese multinational companies. And Keidanren is the major player of the roundtable. And after our first VNR, the Keidanren, Japanese Federation of Economic Organizations, devised its business charter to accommodate SDGs. And such kind of amendment of Keidanren influence a lot to Japanese private sector, especially Japanese business person. And so I think business sector has played a very important role for the promotion of SDGs. And next, the challenge and opportunity for Japanese challenge. Well, we share the recognition that in spite of the wide recognition of SDGs in Japanese society, still the implementation is progress. So it is our agenda how to deepen the implementation of SDGs in Japanese society. Prior to the VNR process last year, we amended the implementation guideline of SDGs in Japanese society and focusing on more implementation rather than concept. And your final question is how we can utilize VNR for the implementation. And according to my experience, the VNR process itself is a very strong driver of the SDGs implementation. We gather multi-stakeholders in the round table of SDGs, and each of the members encourage the discussion in each group and beyond the group. So the active participation itself promotes the implementation of SDGs. So I strongly believe that VNR is one of the most powerful engines for the implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I think it's an excellent way to sort of end that the VNR is a key engine for the SDGs, especially as you outlined the multi-stakeholder engagement here. Thank you very much for that. with that, we're turning to the Philippines. And Garlia, you are one VNR ahead. You're presenting your fourth this year, although it's not a competition. I shall be very clear on that. But it would be interesting to hear a little bit from your side. Have you facilitated stakeholder engagement, and what lessons have you seen with a focus on the private sector? Please, over to you.
Thank you and good morning to everyone. The Philippines actually established the Stakeholders Chamber. It's the platform for the different private sector and business sector and the academe and the media and even the basic sector and the vulnerable sectors to be engaged in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and the VNR process. It was established last 2022 and currently already have 65 members. And one of the advanced accomplishment of these SDG chambers that it is already mirrored in the regional level of the Philippines. We already have 15 regional stakeholders chambers where we engage with these different non-government organizations. In terms of the VNR process, what we are doing now for this fourth VNR, which is very different from our three previous VNRs, is that we will be highlighting the best practices of and success stories shared among the different stakeholders members. It will be put into BACS articles as highlights on the VNR report. And then the draft VNR will be reviewed by the members of the stakeholders chamber, so they are free to provide their comments, inputs, and recommendations to the Philippine VNR report. In terms of the implementation of the SDGs, these SDG stakeholders chambers also have active participation in terms of implementing the 3-year chamber roadmap, which consists of the different collaborative efforts of both the government and non-government in terms of programs and projects that will catch up our achievement of the SDG goals. They are also helping us in terms of crafting policy recommendations aligned with SDG acceleration. They provide actionable policy recommendations, very innovative financing mechanisms. What we learned actually are 3 things in establishing this stakeholders chamber. First, the stakeholders chamber has elevated stakeholder engagement in the Philippines from basic information sharing to active consultation and involvement, following the UNITAR's 4 levels of engagement. Second, the stakeholders chamber serves as a venue to promote understanding and ownership, not just for government agencies, but also for non-government stakeholders, and facilitate the emergence of well-aligned partnerships in the achievement of the SDGs. Third, the platform serves as a venue for better resource mobilization because we were able to tap the resources of the private sector to help us in implementing different programs and projects. The stakeholders chamber ensures complementarity and support between the efforts of the government and non-government actors through matching of existing resources and investment. Also, the SDGs became a shared responsibility. So it is not just now the responsibility of the government, the local government, to implement the SDGs. It already is encompassing not just this side of the government, but also the stakeholders, the private sector, civil society, and the academe. Also, our vice chair for the SDG chamber is the civil society, and actually, she is also here in this hall attending these APFSD. So we are very happy with the engagement that we are currently doing with the stakeholders chamber. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I can see that there are definitely similarities here when it comes to the roundtable, to the multi-stakeholder engagement, to making sure that there is a whole of government approach as well. So there is a lot of food for thought to bring forward. But how does it work with maybe some of the non-state actors then? David, let me turn to you and come to the issue of ESG, the environmental, social, and governance factors, how it's being looked at in the private sector when it comes to the data collection, because this is key when we do the VNRs to have this data and how the private sector can contribute to this monitoring of the SDGs and feed into the VNRs. So please, David, over to you.
Thank you. good morning, esteemed guests and panelists. So I'm honored to be the representative from the private sector, from ESGpedia. So the question of how actually private sector helps, okay, with the SDG monitoring and also VNR is actually at the core of our mission. So this is where ESCAP together with ESGpedia have already provided the tools and infrastructure to make this happen. So to begin, right, so why is this private sector data so important? It helps to bridge the gap, and private sector data is actionable. Okay, it helps to inform the progress of the specific SDG because it can provide granular details on the project level. It can also share information on the impact, okay, across the supply chain, and all this information currently may not be available at the national level reports. And to start with, right, so how we help is actually, we actually built this program called ESPN APAC Green Deal Program, whereby it's just not a data collection tool. It's actually more than that. It's digital, simplified, self-assessment, and it's available for company of all size, from the large corps to the SME, to help them to begin their sustainability journey. So this platform actually will help to provide the granular insights, demonstrate how private sector is using ESG to contribute to SDG and also the VNR. And of course, with helping with the decision making and also accelerating progress. And this program, what it do is actually it give a competitive advantage to the participating company. Okay, because it get a badge, a recognition badge from ESCAP, the green, silver, gold. So it not just enhance their reputation, their market positions, but also it help to connect them to the sustainable finance. And I'm pleased to share that we already have an ecosystem of FI partners, including banks, who actually supported this program and also support the achievers with sustainable finance. So we're talking about banks such as DBS, or OCBC, CIMB, Maybank, etc. And to date, we have already issued like more than 400 badges across APAC countries, okay, including countries such as Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, and Mongolia. Okay, so I think it's already showing some very tangible and clear results. So in short, okay, what we do is we provide these centralized platforms. It helps to collect the data, help to calculate the data and map, okay, the data to the SDG, helping companies with their reporting, enablement, data management. But more importantly, it helps to enhance the SDG monitoring and VNR by integrating the data onto the SDG, helping the user for the assessment of the SDG, and of course, also with the decision making and also more impactful policy formulation. And so together, okay, technology and collaboration, I believe we can unlock, okay, the potential of the corporate and SME data for more resilient, sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, David. I think it gave us a lot of food for thought to really bring in the data dimension in the VNR process, which is so essential. Private sector also has different platforms, and one such is, of course, the UN Global Compact. And let me therefore turn to you, Tan. Malaysia is conducting its third VNR this year, and the UN Global Compact network in Malaysia and Brunei has played a key role. Could you share some example of how you, as the UN Global Compact, has engaged in the preparation of the VNRs? Please, Tan, over to you.
Hello. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it works. Thank you for the question. Good morning, everyone. So, from the UN Global Compact Network Malaysia and Brunei's perspective, how we have been actually supporting in terms of the VNR preparation. So, end of last year, the Ministry of Economy in Malaysia has actually launched a series of multi-stakeholder engagement in preparation of this third VNR. So these sessions, of course, are designed to, of course, gather input from different stakeholders, whether it's from government agencies, from the private sectors, or even from the CSOs. So early of the year, we, together with the UNDP Malaysia and, of course, the National SDG Center under the Ministry of Economy of Malaysia, we have co-organized a stakeholder engagement targeted for the private sectors in Malaysia within the central region in Malaysia, so mostly in the KL area. And how we, the UN Global Compact Network Malaysia, played a role is we played a role in engaging and inviting the private sectors so that to ensure that their insights, their work, their contributions are also being incorporated in this process of the VNR preparation. So, of course, this consultation followed a very structured process whereby there are also breakout sessions for different topic areas, and private sectors are welcome to actually share their inputs, the works that they have done, depending on the areas that they are focusing on. And through this process, how the UN Global Compact Network Malaysia and Brunei, we have, in terms of contributing in advancing the SDG, is by gaining a deeper understanding from the companies in terms of what are the challenges and also what are the opportunities available. So I think something highlighted by Girly from Philippines earlier, I think it's sort of very similar kind of learnings that we have gotten as well. One thing that I find it interesting during that whole engagement session was there were quite a few of these private sectors that they actually raised this concern that they are saying that, oh, we do have available budget, to support different kind of SDG related initiatives or programs, but their issue is they are unable to find whether it's an NGO or CSO or any partners to be able to actually work on this project, because sometimes they may have like a huge project that they really want to actually push it out, but they are unable to find, they don't know where to find, or they're unable to find an organization that's able to support them in this. So that also brings us back in terms of the fundamental issue here. So does that mean that, we have to perhaps put a bit more capacity building for the CSO, for the NGOs, or how can we also work together to bridge the gap between the CSO, the NGOs, as well as the private sectors? So, and finally, something that I also like to share is at the end of the session, the lead consultant from UNDP Malaysia, who has also been involved in the previous VNR preparation. So something that he mentioned was he actually observed a very notable improvement since the last VNR in 2021. I think similarly to Philippines, this year for Malaysia, the VNR, we are also trying to actually showcase more of these stories from Malaysia, whether it's from the private sectors or whatnot. So what have been done in Malaysia? So in the previous VNR, there was a huge challenge in terms of finding, case studies of what private sectors have been doing. But in this third VNR preparation, when we were doing the stakeholder engagement, we find it relatively easier to get input from the private sectors, sharing about what they have been doing in the past in terms of the SDG related initiatives. So this is also something encouraging for us to see, because we noticed this improvement from the previous VNR to this upcoming VNR, whereby even from the private sector side, there are more of these SDG related initiatives that are being pushed up. And then this also shows that businesses, the private sectors, are also putting more emphasis in terms of driving the SDG initiatives. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Tan. And the UN Global Compact really provides a unique vehicle and an opportunity across the world. Thank you very much for sharing that. Our last speaker in the panel is Acel. And Acel, you have focused a lot on promoting women's empowerment and ensuring women's voices are heard in the VNR processes. How do you feel that the private sector can better support and integrate the gender equality dimension in their contributions to the VNR, and what is your experience from Kyrgyzstan in this regard, private sector and a bit broader, please? Over to you, Estelle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for question. Good morning. Gender equality is a critical driver for achieving progress across all SDGs. It's the most effective way to advance issues such as poverty, eradication, health improvement, and climate action. Unfortunately, the world is missing out a huge potential due to gender inequality, which could add an additional 12 trillion to the global economy. I am from APWLD and with APRSM, and we advocate for multi-stakeholder engagement and for development justice. And women from the Central Asia and from my country, Kyrgyzstan, we are also part of this global women's movement. And we have some examples of involving women in these processes. For example, in Central Asia, women's organizations, through collaboration with the government, have achieved positive changes in policies supporting women's empowerment. For example, state support for returning migrant women has been strengthened, improving professional education, employment, and entrepreneurship opportunities. Last year, Kyrgyzstan ratified ILO Convention 190, strengthening protections against workplace violence and harassment. And my country, it's the first country in the Central Asia which ratified this important document. Creation of early preschool education system is also crucial for increasing women's workforce participation opportunities. The government has introduced tax exemptions for family-run kindergartens, accessible loans for entrepreneurs, and free training for childcare providers, enabling young women to pursue education and careers while ensuring children's development. We have concrete examples when banks in Kyrgyzstan are already financing green projects, with CSOs leading the educational components, contributing to both gender equality and climate action. Furthermore, the current Women's Entrepreneurship Support Program expands women's access to financial resources, reducing unemployment, driving migration and child poverty. Expanding such initiatives will enhance gender equality in national development efforts. The private sector can be more responsible in advancing gender-responsive policies, decent work, including inclusive hiring, equal pay, and workplace safety. Business can also contribute fairly through progressive taxation, living wages for workers, and ethical supply chains, rather than voluntary commitments in SDG implementation and VNR process. Business can also support the United Nations binding treaty on business and human rights to ensure that business respects human rights in their operations, supply chains, and throughout their activities. And the last, it will be good that VNR highlights such achievements while also addressing gaps in women's economic participation, financial inclusion, and social protection. It's essential to institutionalize multi-stakeholder engagement, prioritizing climate justice and social protection by allocating funding for climate adaptation and women's economic security will reduce inequalities. Ensuring state funding for national gender equality plans and establish monitoring mechanisms with CSO participation will enhance accountability and drive sustainable progress. My country will provide VNR in this year, and in Kyrgyzstan, a working group was created to prepare a voluntary report with the participation of CSOs and associations, where some women entrepreneurs associations also participated. And now we have meetings with CSOs, with business associations in my country to collect data. And also National Statistical Committee of my country, they created gender disaggregated data on different spheres to do all data for VNR. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Asel, for bringing this very important and cross-cutting issue of gender inclusion and strengthen women participation in the VNRs and the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you. Before I'm going to conclude the session, we have some time for interventions from the floor and a few responses from our panelists. Therefore, I am turning to the floor, and it's my great honor and pleasure to turn to my colleague, Resident Coordinator, Mr. Dirk Wagner, Resident Coordinator of Fiji, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. Dirk, it's a pleasure to have you here in Bangkok. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Michaela. Excellencies, distinguished delegates and panelists, it's my pleasure to make some comments from the floor, and I would like to start by acknowledging and commending actually the government of Fiji on the recently released Suva City Voluntary Local Review, or VLR, report on SDG progress. This is a very historic milestone as a first VLR by a Pacific small island development state, and it marks also a significant step in localizing the SDGs. The VLR reflects the capital city Suva progress, challenges and opportunities, and it serves as a model for other local governments in the country and in the region. It was developed through a whole of government and whole of society approach, and it highlights the collective contributions of government, civil society, and more importantly, that of the private sector in achieving the SDGs. The voluntary national review process is a very powerful advocacy tool to raise awareness and also to foster private sector engagement in SDG implementation. By acknowledging the private sector's role in economic development through job creation, innovation and investment, we can unlock its full potential. The VNR process offers a platform to capture private sector perspectives, identify challenges and explore collaborative opportunities for private sector investment in critical sectors such as health, education, and climate resilience. Pacific SIDS like Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, and Fiji have demonstrated the value of private sector engagement. Through stakeholder mapping, roundtables, and national summits, these countries have integrated private sector voices into their SDG strategies. For example, in the Solomon Islands, the 2024 VNR highlighted successful public-private partnerships in the health sector, showcasing tangible impact of such collaborations. However, significant challenges remain, particularly for the Pacific SIDS. Small market sizes, limited infrastructure, remoteness, and the vulnerability to climate shocks and natural disasters deter private investment. To address this, we must create an enabling environment through favorable policies and incentives. This is essential to attract foreign direct investment and encourage private sector participation in building climate resilient infrastructure, disaster preparedness, and sustainable resource management. We must explore innovative business models and blended financing mechanisms, and we must promote impact investment by connecting Pacific SIDS with global investors. By concluding, I would like to say that it is crucial that we rethink the VNR process as a strategic roadmap for sustained engagement, moving beyond reporting to implementing the 2030 agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Dirk. And then, are there any reflections on this from the panel? Then please feel free as you hear this. Also looking at the local review that you mentioned, which is of course a key dimension as well of really making sure that we localize the sustainable development goals so that they reach everyone everywhere. Thank you for that, Dirk. And let me then move to Mr. Shombi Sharp, our United Nations Resident Coordinator in India. Shombi, it's a pleasure to have you in Bangkok. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, distinguished chair and fellow RC, distinguished panelists, member states, delegates in the room. It's a great honor on behalf of the United Nations country team in India to address you this morning. And as we say in Delhi, namaste, namaskar. Our world finds itself at a crossroads, there's no doubt about that. We're beset by crises. But in India, I'd like to share what I see as two important streams of optimism. First, India, as outlined by this year's APFSD chair, Mr. Suman Berry, yesterday, is a country that has embraced the SDGs as a true data-driven governance movement. From the world's first subnational SDG index to state-level SDG coordination centers across the country, each state being the size of an average UN member state, by the way, the states of India cooperate and compete in a race to the top of the SDG ladder. And we in the UN have been humble partners with Niti Aayog and with the government in elaborating what has become known as the Indian model of SDG localization. Secondly, we see a dynamic partnership between the government and the whole of society, with CSOs and the private sector at the core. And this is critical because we know that achieving the SDGs requires businesses to do the heavy lifting. And at the same time, India's CSR law mandates 2% of net profits to be invested in corporate social responsibility, along with national guidelines on responsible business conduct. So we've seen annual growth of 13% in recent years in India's social sector spending. And we see that heavy lifting coming from the private sector in India, where hundreds of millions of people are being lifted out of poverty, with innovative industries creating jobs at scale, driving a green economy and energy transition, leapfrogging to decarbonize the fastest growing large economy in the world, and helping to fill the SDG financing gap. This includes leveraging India's massive bet on digital public infrastructure, the India Stack, wielding technology to close digital and gender divides, and with 2/3 of India's cities yet to be built, the challenge is massive to ensure inclusive, disaster-resilient infrastructure. Thus, the 26 entities of the United Nations country team have put collaborating with civil society and industry at the very core, from ensuring cotton supply chains that are sustainable, to de-risking impact investing, to equipping millions of young people, including girls, with 21st century skills. We also partner with the UN Global Compact in India, which is the world's largest. All of this now comes into sharp focus to close through the VNR process. We are honored and privileged to be supporting Niti Aayog and government in conducting India's third VNR, which is employing a truly robust whole-of-society approach, bringing together 14 different segments of the most vulnerable groups in society, plus private sector. We are currently consulting over 200 stakeholders across industries, from large to medium, small enterprises and chambers and others, so that we gather the collective wisdom of the Indian private sector. And I would very much wish to share a question with you. I suppose that comes at the next stage. But just to conclude, that I have heard from Dirk, from Michaela, and the RCs in your countries across Asia and Pacific, that they also see these streams of optimism, and that Asia and Pacific is best placed to drive the lion's share of economic and social progress in the decades to come. Sate to sambhav hai, which in Hindi means together we can succeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Shombi. And let me then turn to our panelists for some reflections on what Dirk and Shombi shared, and also, as you've heard, the other panelists. Gulia, if I can start with you, when you hear this and you look at the Philippines, what's your takeaways?
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned, the Philippines also have voluntary local reviews of several local government units, and we come up with 15 regional catch-up plans that were developed from the local government together with the regional stakeholders chamber. The lessons that we learned in this engagement is that it is very important that the commitment of the national government and the local government to work together to come up with the voluntary local reviews, because it is not an easy activity to do. So it requires resources, it requires data, it requires the engagement of different stakeholders. We need to really encourage and assist the local government units in terms of capacitating them on how to come up with these voluntary local reviews, these VLRs, and then when they come up with their own VLRs, it's the time that we integrate it to the national voluntary national review. Second is we also learned that the importance of having the availability of timely data, because it will be the heart of the reporting of the VLRs and the VNRs. And it has to be disaggregated up to the city or the municipal level or the household level for us to be able to really see the movement of the different indicators of the SDGs. And to do that, we know that it's costly. So it's important for some local government units to recognize the administrative data that they have and maximize its use. That's one. Second is also to maximize the available technology to make the expenses for gathering data more efficient and more effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And then, Shigemi, when you hear this, what's the reflections from the side of Japan when you hear this?
Well, thank you. A very inspiring discussion among panelists and also from chair. And first of all, I strongly echo the point of Mr. Wagner. It is a very difficult time, but still we need the cautious optimism to promote SDGs. And undoubtedly, business is the sector which has the potential of optimism. And secondly, this is my through the discussion, I strongly confirm my conviction that the multi-stakeholder approach is the key. Of course, private sector is highly important, but at the same time, other stakeholders such as the civil society, local government, academia, etc., also highly important. So the multi-stakeholder approach is the key. And probably I think the data is one of the cross-cutting issues to answer these challenges. And I would like to introduce one interesting example of Japanese local government exercises. I had a chance to hear from a Toyota City, a middle-sized local government of Japan, and it succeeded to reduce the cost of elderly care almost 1.1 billion yen by the investment of 0.5 billion yen, so 2 times return, with the close collaboration of the private sector for the company Dream Incubator by the social impact bond, a kind of the impact investment. And the key was data. And the team of Dream Incubator are looking for all over the world the necessary data, and finally they found that Japanese academia has such kind of data. So the close collaboration, private sector, local government, and academia succeed this remarkable achievement. So VNR has a strong potential to accelerate the collaboration among various stakeholders, multi-stakeholders. So that is my reflection.
Thank you very much. A very clear and good example of this innovative financing approach to advance the SDGs at the local level. Thank you. David, anything that stands out to you here?
Yes, definitely. I think from today's conversation, I gathered private sector data is important, and obviously is a key information to to contribute to the SDG monitoring and VNR as well. And so I think there's a few things that I can discuss. Is that firstly, we can build, for example, a SDG 9 dashboard to help to track and monitor all these ESG initiative. How well they are performing, and very often, if you don't have a track and monitoring tool, you don't know actually what's the status. Okay, so a dashboard is important, and I have to bring out that actually in Mongolia, we already done that with MSFA. Yeah, we have done that. We have built out a dashboard, and this is actually live already. So you can see the taxonomy, how well the ESG initiative in Mongolia is aligning to the SDG. Okay, so that's one. So second, of course, also how do we empower the MSME? I have to share that in Philippines, we have done that with DTI, the government agencies, for their SPARK program. I think 1 year ago, DTI actually introduced this SPARK program to help the MSME in their sustainable journey, how to do the disclosure. Of course, started off manually. So that's where we come in the picture, and we help to do it digitally. And of course, we have done a pilot phase, and just this year, in fact, next week, we'll be talking to DTI again to see how we can, progress from there, and and also turn to the rest of the MSME. And lastly, actually, I would think that capacity building is important, and that's where that we need a lot of partnerships. together with UN Global Compact, for example. For Global Compact, actually in Singapore, we are empowering their CERT tool, which is the carbon emission reporting tool. So when a company in Singapore do a disclosure, they get two things. Actually, one is a low carbon SG badge. That's from GCNS. And second, they can get a report from us. Okay, so that actually helps a lot as well. So I feel that all these are the things that we can all work together, and obviously we can help the SDG as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, David. And let me then continue. Asel, any reflections when you hear the RCs from Fiji and the multi-country office in India?
I want to add that the multi-stakeholder partnership approach is very important. We as the private sector, CSOs and global frameworks like the GCM work together to drive transformative change. To enhance collaboration, the UN and country teams should ensure meaningful participation of grassroots and women's organizations, provide flexible and accessible fundings, integrate gender-responsible policies into all initiatives, and strengthening accountability mechanisms, protecting civic space, and fostering long-term partnerships will also be key to ensuring inclusive and impactful engagement toward achieving the SDGs. And also, I want to add about GCM. It's also very important to recognize migration as a key factor for achieving of Sustainable Development Goal and acknowledge migrants, particularly women migrants, both internal and cross-border, as valuable resource for sustainable development. And the role of private sector is very important to protect and promote right holders of like migrants. And it's very important because just in Central Asia, we have, for example, 4 million migrants. They work in different countries.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up the importance of bearing in mind the global perspective on migration, which is key also, as data is very often a vulnerable group that runs the risk of being left behind in national social protection systems. So thank you for really putting the spotlight there as well. And of course, women and girls as a particular vulnerable community in the migrant sector. Thank you for that as well. Dan, from the Global Compact perspective and your vast experience here, any reflections you want to share with us?
Yep. So I think first of all, it's very happy to hear that all of this, different RCs, different countries are also working closely with the Global Compact Network chapters in the country itself. But one thing from the private sector's point of view is I think it has been highlighted that multi-stakeholder engagement is very important. But from the private sector's point of view, especially this year when we did that private sector engagement, something that I realized is, to be honest, many of these private sectors are still not aware about what is VNR. So when we send out the invitation for them to come for the stakeholder consultation, we still kind of have to explain to them, actually what is this VNR process. Malaysia is submitting our third, so right now we are doing this stakeholder engagement. So I think it's good that by having more of this kind of stakeholder engagement sessions with the private sectors, it also allows them to, get them to be aware about this kind of documents or reports that the country, the nation itself is also submitting, because this also allows the private sectors to understand how can they really actually able to contribute to the SDG progress. Because many times when we speak to the private sectors locally, one of the questions they will ask is, how does my work here contribute directly to the SDGs? So they don't know how to measure, they are unable to see sort of, the tangible kind of thing. So for them, I think by having this kind of engagement and all, it does help the private sectors to also see, okay, this is how I can, really directly contribute to the SDG improvement or progress in the country itself. And also something that I realized during that consultation session that we had recently, it's about also obtaining data from the nation itself. Because when we engage with the private sectors, often that not one of the main issues that they raise is, lack of data. So they are unable to know what is the progress of Malaysia, what are some of the issues that we are facing and all. And during that consultation session, because we have, breakout into different breakout groups, and each breakout groups, they have an expert that actually showcase some data, what are some of the past issues, what are some of the current progress that we are working on. So these also allow the private sectors to also understand, okay, so this is currently the situation and what would be some of the things that they can actually work together, collaborate to look for partners to progress this issue. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I think that last point you made links us back to the first point you made about making sure that the SDGs are known in the countries, that they are known and owned by a multi-stakeholder engagement, because that's when we can leverage the private sector, that's when we can get in the civil society. But the remarkable figure of 90%, if I understood you correctly, being aware of the SDGs, that's a very that's very, very high, and it really sets the bar for how you can start working. But I take away from our discussions today the importance of the different methodologies that you are using, and of course engaging not only multi-stakeholder but also representation in those platforms, both from organizations but also from parts of the society, women, migrants, whoever would be the right target audience in the different contexts. I also note what you said about engaging influencers. Very modern approach, but indeed, anything to get the SDGs out and to get the buy-in of the community. So it's a good example. And I appreciate the discussions and focus we had on the local VNRs as well, really making sure that we're reaching cities, municipalities, regions, because that's where people live. And I think it is really clear to us that the continuation of a human-centered approach to the SDGs, that the VNR can move forward on identifying where the targets has to be for us, is really the way forward for us. The UN plays a key role in supporting this process with expertise and tools, and not least coming together on a day like today. And rest assured that I know that I speak for the entire UN system when I continue to extend our commitment to the member states in engaging in the continued VNR processes across the Asia-Pacific region for all the member states of ESCAP. With that, let me thank our panelists, our speakers, the resident coordinators, and all participants for your engagement today. And let me also thank our ESCAP colleagues, as well as our translators, who have helped us making this a very engaging session. Dear panelists, thank you so much. I invite you back to your seats, and I invite our dear chair. It's my honor to hand back over to you and to the secretary for the member states' statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Michaela, for the great moderation of the panel and for also summarizing the interesting discussions. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, now I am pleased to invite the distinguished delegates to intervene on agenda item 3, which we know is accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development through the voluntary national reviews. I'll open the floor to statements from delegates in the speaking order as I have received from the Secretariat. But I would like to kindly remind all the delegates to limit your statements to no longer than 3 minutes, so as to allow equal opportunity to all. So I recognize the distinguished delegate from the Federated States of Micronesia, Mr. Yatilman, to be followed by the distinguished delegate from Japan, Mr. Ando. So, distinguished delegate from the Federated State of Micronesia, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Micronesia is pleased to share our concrete commitment to accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda through enhanced private sector engagement. Micronesia recently approved its 20-year strategic development plan, which explicitly recognized private sector development as a crucial component of our sustainable economic development framework. Our new development plan envisions a vibrant, diverse, and sustainable economy that drives sustainable growth and improves living standard. To achieve this, we have established clear strategic outcomes, focus on creating an economic environment that promotes private sector growth through developing a business enabling environment that promotes a diversified economic base, enhancing e-commerce and digital marketing capabilities, strengthening resilient infrastructure and sustainable trade, and promoting environmental sustainability in private sector operations. Our development plan outlines specific measures to attract foreign capital for new and existing industries through improved regulatory frameworks, enhanced infrastructure, and streamlined investment processes. We are committed to creating an enabling environment that balances foreign investment opportunities with sustainable development principles and protection of our natural resources. As a SITS nation, Micronesia recognizes that accelerating the 2030 Agenda requires both domestic action and international support. While we are committed to the strengthening of our local private sector, we emphasize the need for enhanced engagements from larger nations' private sectors, particularly in technology transfer and digital transformation, climate finance initiatives, and capacity building for our SMEs. Therefore, we urge developing countries to support enhanced mechanism for cross-border private sector partnership that benefits SIDS, provide technical assistance in strengthening our investment facilitation frameworks, support in developing our digital infrastructure to enable modern business operations, build the capacity for investment promotion and management, and establish frameworks for international private sector engagement that considers our unique context as a SIDS nation. Micronesia stands ready to share our experience and learn from others as we work together to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda through meaningful private sector engagement. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from the Federated State of Micronesia. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Japan to take the floor, but to be followed by distinguished delegate from Fiji. Delegate from Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You give me the special privilege to speak in this important session second time. Thank you very much. So, first of all, I would like to express my deep respect to the colleagues and Secretariat of ESCAP for preparing this important session. Achieving the SDGs means realizing both sustainability and development. The private sector is crucial in transforming today's social and environmental challenges into opportunities for growth and employment. That is why I strongly support this session's focus on enhancing the engagement of stakeholders, especially the private sector. Mr. Chair and dear colleagues, I would like to share with you some good practices through the current voluntary national levy of Japan. Japan has the third voluntary national review this year. Firstly, it is important to include the perspectives of local business and SMEs in the VNR in addition to large companies. Japan has established the SDGs Promotion Roundtable to foster cooperation among multi-stakeholders. Last year, we newly invited the Chamber of Commerce, representing many SMEs, and the Shiga Bank located in a non-metropolitan area to this roundtable. Considering the importance of finance, Japanese Bankers Association was also invited. Secondly, the contribution of roundtable participants is not limited to commenting on the activities of government. They also explain their initiatives and evaluate the progress of Japan's SDGs. In the current VNR, one chapter will be written by the roundtable members. One member from the business sector mentioned to me privately that such active participation deepens the understanding of the SDGs within the group this member represents. VNR facilitates active discussion on future challenges and effort within and beyond each group. These experiences strongly endorse our working assumption, that is, the VNR is a critical process for enhancing the engagement of multi-stakeholders, including the private sector, towards the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Japan. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Fiji, who will be followed by the distinguished delegate from Bangladesh.
Thank you, Chair. For Fiji, the private sector, Chair. Fiji's VNR of 2023 included a whole of government and stakeholder approach, where robust consultations were held with all sectoral line ministries, civil society, and the private sector. The stakeholder approach to the SDG implementation and the VNR exercise enabled Fiji's National Statistical Office to enhance data quality and establish a comprehensive national SDG database. The VNR exercise has played a vital role in shedding light on the progress of implementation of the SDGs and in fostering collaboration between the government, CSOs, and the private sector. For Fiji, the private sector has been instrumental in driving progress in the prosperity cluster. SDGs 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Significant progress has been made in data collection for SDG indicators that pose measurement challenges, and ongoing efforts are required to address these gaps. Fiji's 2023 VNR points out that progress on the SDGs in Fiji has been mixed. While the country has made commendable strides in the implementation of certain SDGs, progress has been less satisfactory in others. Furthermore, within each SDGs, progress towards specific targets has varied. Out of the 169 SDG targets, Fiji has made good progress in achieving 24, which is 14%. Another 45, which is 27%. Targets could be achieved, but this would necessitate accelerated action. Regrettably, negative progress has been observed in 28 SDGs, which is 17% of the targets, while 72 or 43% of the targets could not be measured. Specifically, Fiji has made good progress since 2015 and is on track to achieve its 2030 targets for several SDGs. It is advancing in providing clean water and sanitation goal 6 and reducing inequalities goal 10, driven by improved sanitation, water quality, and targeted development assistance alongside reduced refugee numbers and favorable trade measures. Fiji is also nearing its 2030 benchmarks for life on land, goal 15, affordable and clean energy, goal 7, with progress marked by expanding forest areas, enhanced environmental governance, decreased energy intensity, and increased support for renewable energy initiatives. However, challenges remain, particularly for good health and well-being, goal 3, where recent setbacks include rising under 5 and neonatal mortality, increased HIV and tuberculosis cases, and high rates of alcohol consumption and road traffic deaths. Data gaps further complicated progress tracking, with 42% of SDG targets unmeasured and significant deficit in gender equality, sustainable cities, climate change, and institutional integrity indicators. Additionally, SDG 8 has experienced setbacks in economic growth indicators exacerbated by the impacts of COVID-19 and related disasters, which have also disrupted progress towards Goal 1, 11, and 13. Given this challenge, it is crucial it is crucial for Fiji to continue to prioritize data production as 42% of the SDG targets could not be measured due to a lack of data. In conclusion, Chair, Fiji has multiple needs, and finding lasting solutions to these require resources, and ultimately the Fiji government recognizes and acknowledges that invaluable contributions that the private sector and CSOs contribute towards attaining the SDGs is pivotal for us. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I invite the distinguished delegate from Bangladesh to be followed by a distinguished delegate from Indonesia.
Thank you. Honorable Chair, our delegates and friends, just 6 months ago, our nation witnessed a defining moment in its history, the July-August 2024 monsoon revolution. This youth-led mass uprising was not merely a protest. It was a resounding call for transparency, accountability, and economic justice. The streets of Bangladesh became the stage for a movement that amplified the frustrations of a generation demanding a fairer, more inclusive future. The UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights revealed that around 1,400 people were killed in this uprising, 12 to 13% of them being children. In the wake of this seismic shift, Bangladesh's interim government, under the stewardship of Nobel Peace Laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus, stepped into a pivotal role to redefine governance, rebuild trust, and restore economic fairness. This demands nothing short of a whole-of-society approach where government, civil society, and the youth and private sector work together to accelerate the pursuit of the Sustainable Development Goals and ensuring that no one is left behind. Yet despite these political and economic challenges, you will be happy to know that Bangladesh is setting a global precedent in climate resilience. We are pioneering sustainable adaptation models, investing in renewable energy, coastal protection, and disaster management systems. These proactive measures have drastically reduced disaster-related fatalities and fortified the resilience of our most vulnerable communities. Financing the SDGs present another pressing challenge. Bangladesh's tax to GDP ratio stands at 7.5%, significantly lower than the Asia-Pacific average of 19.3%. The rise of non-communicable diseases and the lingering impact of the COVID-19 pandemic continue to strain our healthcare system and demand urgent attention and investment. Despite these challenges, we see immense opportunities. The role of youth. With youth constituting one-third of our population, Bangladesh has placed youth empowerment at the forefront of its agenda, prioritizing entrepreneurship, vocational training, and digital literacy to equip them with the skills needed for a rapidly evolving workforce. Beyond youth engagement, Bangladesh is deepening its commitment to inclusive governance. Our third voluntary national review in 2025 embraces a participatory approach that wasn't seen before in the last two ones. We actively are engaging with civil society organizations, CSOs, NGOs, and local communities to ensure that development policies align with the aspirations and realities of our people. The bottom-up governance approach reinforces our commitment to transparency, accountability, and inclusivity. Bangladesh reaffirms its dedication to the SDGs with a strong emphasis on the leave no one behind principle. Our policies prioritize rural communities, ethnic minorities, women, and persons with disabilities, guaranteeing equal access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. With a renewed focus on poverty eradication, universal health coverage, and gender equality and climate resilience, Bangladesh's interim government has launched 16 reform commissions. These commissions tackle critical governance challenges, including public administration transparency, anti-corruption measures, judicial and electoral reforms, and women's rights. By strengthening institutions and fostering an equitable governance system, Bangladesh is laying the foundation for a future that is just, inclusive, and sustainable for all. Let us do this for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Bangladesh. I invite the distinguished delegate from Indonesia to be followed by the distinguished delegate from Azerbaijan.
Honorable Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the VNR process plays a crucial role in accelerating the implementation of SDGs. VNR fosters accountability, knowledge sharing, and policy innovation. For Indonesia, VNR process is not only a reporting mechanism, but a tool for action, learning, and transformation. We are proud to continuously lead by example. We submitted 3 VNRs previously in 2017, 2019, and 2021. We are planning to submit our fourth VNR at the high-level political forum this year. Each VNR has highlighted our country's progress, challenge, and strategies in implementing SDGs. For 2025, our VNR will cover Leave No One Behind analysis and interlink with other SDGs targets and indicators, namely SDGs 3, 5, 8, 14, and 15. 17, I mean. As we are approaching 2030 in 5 years, we encourage other ESCAP member states to actively participate in the VN process. First, by leveraging VNRs effectively, we can contribute to the SDGs implementation, address challenges proactively, and strengthen multi-stakeholder partnerships. The VN process fosters inclusive collaboration between government, civil society, private sectors, academia, and local communities. It leads to participatory policy making, enhances public awareness of the SDGs. Second, VN process and private sector contribution to the SDGs are closely linked. Beyond driving economic growth and job creation, businesses have the capacity to champion sustainability, integrate responsible practices, and mobilize financial resources. The VNR process motivates government to create policy incentives to businesses to invest in SDGs alliance projects. At the same time, it encourages private sectors to align business practices with national sustainability goals. Third, VNR paves the way for global knowledge exchange facilitated by the UN system. It allows nations to learn from successful policies, programs, and strategies implemented elsewhere, establishes future alignment between economic, social, and environmental policies to maximize impact on avoiding conflicting outcomes. We only have a limited windows of opportunity left to meet the 2030 targets. We must harness every opportunity. Indonesia looks forward to working with ESCAP for the preparation of our incoming VNR. I thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Azerbaijan to be followed by distinguished delegate from India.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. As one of the VNR champion country, it's a great honor to deliver a speech and share our keen experience in Asia-Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. Azerbaijan is one of the 5 countries globally and first in ESCAP region presented 4 times voluntary national review in HLPF 2024. We admit that up to now, Azerbaijan's VNR have been signifying a journey of strategic evaluation, aligning with both global shifts and local imperatives. From the initial focus on poverty eradication to the broader goals of empowering people and addressing challenges posed by global economic instability, our government have demonstrated a remarkable ability to adapt policies to dynamic social-economic landscape. Overall objective of our all 4 VNRs, Azerbaijan's commitment to inclusive decision-making. By engaging civil society, business community, youth and international organizations in prioritizing sustainable development goals, we foster a collaborative and participatory approach in reaching national strategies with diverse perspectives. We strategically integrate rehabilitation, reconstruction, and reintegration of liberated areas into our national development strategy, recognizing not only our commitment to regional stability, but also transformative impact of conflict resolution on broader economic perspective. Azerbaijan VNR depict a nation navigating the complexity of sustainable development with adaptability, inclusivity, and strategic foresight. The insight coming in from these reports not only inform our ongoing national strategies, but also offer valuable lessons from the global community in navigating the evolving landscape of sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the UN Secretary General's report, the majority of sustainable development goals are not on track, with only around 15-17 of targets currently considered to be on track to be achieved by 2030. The main reason for this outcome is limited access to financial resources for achieving SDGs. Promptly response to this challenge, our government has made significant strides in implementing the INFF and SDG investor map to amplify financing for SDG acceleration. Embracing SDG investing as a mechanism for driving positive social and environmental change, we are proud to announce that 82% of our consolidated budget expenditure align with national SDG goals and targets, constituting almost 25% of GDP in 2023. Also, I would like to mention the importance of twinning projects supported by ESCAP to member countries on improvement effectiveness of VNR and sharing best experience of SDG know-hows. In this line, we joined the project and organized site tour for our colleagues from Lao PDR to Azerbaijan to enrich reporting experience for both countries on the way of HLPF. It would be brilliant to continue this project for the countries, particularly the response to the challenges not only on VNR preparation, but also SDG implementation. Last but not the least, I would like to note that Azerbaijan remains firm in its commitment to the principle of sustainable development, and we look forward to fruitful collaboration with our global partner towards prosperous and sustainable future for all. I thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Azerbaijan. I invite the distinguished delegate from India to be followed by the distinguished delegate from the Russian Federation.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, India considers the voluntary national review process as a vital mechanism for strengthening multi-stakeholder engagement, fostering policy coherence, and enhancing accountability to SDG implementation. Through the VNR, India has institutionalized a participatory approach, integrating inputs from government agencies, civil societies, academia, and the private sector. This collaborative framework has enabled the identification of key challenges, policy gaps, and innovative solutions, ensuring that our development trajectory remains inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. This year, India is set to present its third voluntary national review, striving to make the process even more inclusive and participatory. Building on the successes of the 2020 VNR, which set a benchmark in inclusivity, India continues to uphold its commitment to a participatory and universal approach in the 2025 VNR process. The extensive consultations have already been initiated, beginning with the central ministries, state departments, followed by engagements with various civil society and Leave No One Behind groups. These include approximately 30 consultations across the country, involving over 1,000 civil society organizations representing diverse population segments. Guided by the process of Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas, that is together for everyone, growth with everyone's trust, India's SDG strategy is anchored in the spirit of cooperative federalism, ensuring active participation across all levels of governance, from the national to the grassroots. Initiatives such as the SDG India Index and the Northeastern Regional Index have played a crucial role in tracking progress and identifying areas for improvement. To date, 4 editions of the SDG India Index has been released. At the heart of India's SDG process lies the localization through the state coordination and acceleration centers. These centers help to implement policies and schemes focusing on saturation. Additionally, grassroots institutions such as Panchayati Raj and urban local bodies play a pivotal role in the process. Transformative initiatives such as the Aspirational Districts Program and the Aspirational Blocks Program are driving sustainable and inclusive development across several districts and blocks in all the states and union territories. As India undertakes its third voluntary national review, it is also reflecting on the challenges encountered during the second Vienna process. Since 2020, India has been actively addressing these challenges, making significant progress in key areas such as improving data quality through several portals, strengthening the statistical systems, enhancing stakeholder capacity, and deepening SDG localization. India's long-term vision, Viksit Bharat 2047, that is Developed India, underscores the commitment to sustainable, equitable, and resilient growth. This roadmap aligns national priorities with the SDGs, integrating climate action, social protection, and inclusive economic development. India reaffirms its commitment to knowledge sharing and mutual learning. This third VNR of India will serve as a guiding document to sustain our efforts towards achieving the SDGs while addressing emerging challenges. We look forward to strengthening collaboration with all stakeholders, governments, civil society, and the private sector to collectively accelerate the process towards the 2030 agenda and beyond. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from India. I now invite the distinguished delegate from the Russian Federation to be followed by the distinguished delegate of Kazakhstan.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемые участники форума. Российская Федерация остается приверженной усилиям по реализации положений повестки 2030. Приветствуем работу секретариата ESCAP по налаживанию всеохватного регионального диалога по проблематике устойчивого развития в Азиатско-Тихоокеанском регионе и оказанию содействия заинтересованным странам региона в достижении целей устойчивого развития. И подготовки отчетности о национальном прогрессе в реализации повестки 2030, в том числе посредством добровольных национальных обзоров. Хотели бы подчеркнуть, что скоординированная деятельность и налаживание конструктивного сотрудничества между представителями государственных органов, бизнес-сообщества и гражданского общества в целом на местном, региональном и глобальных уровнях являются важнейшим фактором выполнения целей и задач повестки 2030. Разумеется, в этом контексте необходимо обеспечивать соответствующее разделение прерогатив государственных органов и негосударственных участников, соблюдение процедур, действующей практики аккредитации и участия неправительственных организаций в работе органов системы ООН. Одним из действенных инструментов привлечения частных компаний к реализации повестки 2030 является глобальный договор ООН и его национальные сети, представляющие уникальную платформу для диалога, обмена опытом и выработки новых моделей сотрудничества для деловых структур в контексте устойчивого развития. Российский бизнес активно вовлечен в работу на этом треке. Примером является деятельность Российской ассоциации «Национальная сеть глобального договора», объединяющей крупнейшие отечественные компании из различных секторов и вносящей заметный вклад в продвижение корпоративной ответственности и устойчивого развития в нашей стране. Показательным примером являются программы, реализуемые крупнейшим независимым производителем гидроэлектроэнергии в мире – компании N+ Group. По ее инициативе создана ассоциация «Байкал без пластика». И сегодня порядка 30 компаний из различных сфер бизнеса, научных и образовательных учреждений, некоммерческих организаций и особо охраняемых природных территорий успешно работают рука об руку над сохранением уникальной экосистемы Байкала, крупнейшего в мире пресноводного озера. Последовательную работу по вовлечению частного сектора в продвижение идей и принципов устойчивого развития ведут и российские министерства, а также Банк России. Так, в прошлом году Министерство экономического развития Российской Федерации представило новый стандарт отчетности об устойчивом развитии, который могут применять как государственные, так и частные компании. А Банк России в конце 2023 года подготовил рекомендации публичным акционерным обществам и эмитентам ценных бумаг по разработке стратегии устойчивого развития и стратегии климатического перехода, а также регулярно выпускает другие актуальные рекомендации, посвященные вопросам устойчивого развития. Благодарим за внимание.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from the Russian Federation. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Kazakhstan to be followed by the representative of the APR CM Farmers Constituency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Kazakhstan's accession to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is a consistent step towards the transition to sustainable development of our country. I would like to note that the idea and the process of preparing voluntary reviews at the regional level will have a positive impact on the development of the region and its monitoring. At the same time, local reviews will form the basis for preparation of a voluntary national review and will help to show the full picture of the implementation of the SDGs. 2 years ago, the first voluntary local review of the city of Almaty, the largest city in our country, was presented in Geneva, Switzerland. In July 2024, the National Development Plan of the Republic of Kazakhstan until 2029 was signed. The approaches of the National Development Plan are aimed, among other things, at accelerating transition processes to achieve sustainable development goals. Also, last year, a new system of state planning was adopted in the Republic of Kazakhstan. According to it, the national SDG indicators are decomposed into programmatic and strategic planning documents, including by localizing them into regional development documents. The government of Kazakhstan has expressed its readiness to submit a third voluntary national review in 2025. Following the basic principle of the SDGs, leave no one behind, when preparing national review, we plan to conduct a cycle of consultations with different categories of the population, as well as with representatives of non-governmental organizations and our international partners. Dear participants, Kazakhstan, as a country that has committed itself to the implementation of the SDGs, is actively working in all directions and is ready to contribute to the successful achievement of global goals. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Kazakhstan. I now invite the distinguished delegate, the representative of the APR CEM Farmers Constituency, to be followed by the distinguished delegate from Malaysia.
Thank you, Chair. I make this statement on behalf of the Farmers Constituency of APR-SEM. Small and marginal farmers, particularly women, form the backbone of global agriculture. However, the rapid digitalization of agri-food systems, disconnected from grassroots realities, is deepening existing inequalities. The persistent digital divide, driven by structural barriers such as lack of digital literacy, technological skills, resources, and weak rural infrastructure, prevent farmers from benefiting from technological advancements. Rural digital ecosystems remain underdeveloped, limiting access to knowledge, financial services, government programs, and markets, especially for women. The absence of gender disaggregated data leads to exclusion of women farmers from policies, financial supports, and capacity building initiatives, and women remain invisible in official statistics. Inclusive data frameworks must be prioritized by integrating gender-responsive indicators that reflect lived realities of the farming communities. Farmers disproportionately bear the brunt of climate impacts while lacking resources to adapt. Climate finance must be accessible, gender-responsive, and tailored to the unique needs of all farming communities, especially small farmers, to enhance their resilience, safeguard global food security, and foster equitable agricultural transformation in the face of the climate crisis. Crop insurance schemes must be farmer-centric, accessible, and responsive to the unique challenges of the farming community, ensuring immediate payouts, simplified claim processes, and transparency to safeguard them from climate shocks and market volatility. The future of agriculture must be built upon real solutions that empower small farmers, uphold food sovereignty, agroecological principles, and advance climate justice, moving away from corporate-driven models threatening food sovereignty and traditional wisdom. The VNRs must prioritize climate justice as a critical priority for countries in Asia and the Pacific and ensure farmers' integration for inclusive and holistic reviews. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I invite the distinguished delegate of Malaysia to be followed by distinguished delegate of Vanuatu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Malaysia remains steadfast in its commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and continues to accelerate its implementation through voluntary national reviews. Malaysia considers VNR as a vital tool for tracking SDG progress, identifying gaps, and fostering national and international cooperation. We have published 2 VNRs in 2017 and 2021, with another one this year, and continue to refine our strategies based on key findings. Developing Malaysia's VNR this year has provided valuable lessons. We work closely with the United Nations agencies and have a solid governance structure involving ministries, academia, private sector, and civil society. This multi-stakeholder approach ensures that our SDG efforts are inclusive, well-coordinated, and aligned with global best practices. Excellencies and distinguished delegates, we have successfully engaged stakeholders across all regions, including dedicated sessions with private sectors. These grassroots level engagements have highlighted disparities in SDG awareness based on geographic and socio-economic factors. This finding reaffirms the need for a whole-of-government approach at both national and local levels, in line with Commitment 28 of Annex 2 of the Pact for the Future to ensure SDG efforts reach all communities. As we have learned from the panel session this morning, Malaysia recognizes the impact of the alliance of 23 foundations formed by government-linked companies in transforming lives through community development and sustainable initiatives. Over 470,000 individuals have benefited, and these efforts will be highlighted in our upcoming VNR showcasing meaningful progress by private sector. In addition to the VNR, Malaysia has made significant strides in implementing voluntary local reviews. The VNR process serves as a bridge between both frameworks, ensuring alignment in sustainable development efforts. To date, Malaysia has published 15 VLRs, with 14 more expected this year. This year's VNR process aligns with the 13 Malaysia Plan from 2026 to 2030. It serves 2 key purposes: evaluating SDG progress across subnationals and incorporating stakeholder insights into national planning. This ensures sustainable development remains central to Malaysia's long-term policies and the 2030 Agenda. In conclusion, Malaysia remains committed to advancing the 2030 Agenda through VNR and inclusive policies. As we approach the final 5 years, we emphasize the importance of intensifying collaboration among member states in the region. Strengthening knowledge sharing at local, national, and regional levels will be crucial to enhancing our VNR process and accelerating SDG efforts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Malaysia. I invite the distinguished delegate of Vanuatu to be followed by the distinguished delegate of Cambodia.
Thank you, Chair. I am honored to deliver this national statement on behalf of the people and government of the Republic of Vanuatu. 10 years after we agreed to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, a shared promise by every country to work together to secure the rights and well-being of everyone living in a healthy, prosperous planet, and the principle of leaving no one behind are clearly in peril. The bleak situation cannot be more dire than in the Pacific, where progress in the achievements of the 17 SDGs is slow at best and regressing at worst. Since the adoption of the 2030 Agenda and its SDGs, successive national governments in Vanuatu and the Pacific have led efforts to overcome traditional silos and to foster an integrated all-of-government approach to address our nation's policy gaps and challenges aligning our efforts to attaining SDGs. Despite these efforts, we continue to grapple with obstacles. Climate-induced disasters continue to be the Pacific's main impediment to sustainable development. In fact, they multiply our existing vulnerabilities. Just 2 months ago, in 19 seconds, Vanuatu encountered one of the worst earthquakes to wreak havoc in our region, claiming multiple lives and destroying many homes and buildings, shedding years of hard-won development. As I speak, up to 4 cyclones could hit the Pacific this week, one of which has just lashed Fiji. What we need is an urgent rescue plan that goes beyond NDCs to accelerate climate actions. Moreover, Pacific islands are at high risk of debt distress, compounding the financial burdens to fund our national sustainable development. Vanuatu's debt to GDP level increased from 20% of GDP in 2010 to almost 50% of GDP within 15 years. This makes it very challenging for our government to invest in strengthening healthcare, education, infrastructure, and much needed climate action, much less in other sectors. What Vanuatu is calling for is a fair chance at a better future for our people. We need an overhaul of the international financial system to right the wrongs of past injustices. We urge our development partners to employ the recently adopted Multi-dimensional Vulnerability Index as a tool to facilitate access to concessional financing to lighten our debt burdens. Last but definitely not the least, we urgently need a clear pathway for data production and availability for all. Vanuatu remains indebted to its several bilateral, regional, and multilateral development partners. We have a long journey ahead of us. To achieve sustainable development and a prosperous future for our people, urgent, accelerated actions that are guided by science and evidence-based solutions are urgently required and supported by strong, sustained, and genuine multilateral cooperation. I thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Vanuatu. I now invite the distinguished delegate of Cambodia to be followed by the distinguished delegate of Armenia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, distinguished delegate, ladies and gentlemen. At this pivotal gathering, Cambodia reaffirmed its steadfast commitment to advancing the 2030 agenda through an integrated approach that recognizes the strong connection between population dynamics, human rights, and sustainable development. We acknowledge that achieving the Sustainable Development Goal requires a comprehensive and inclusive strategy that leaves no one behind. Cambodia's development trajectory is guided by a robust policy framework, ensuring alignment with our national priority and global commitment. Our efforts are driven by the multi-ministerial ICPD Framework for Action 2024-2028, the Cambodia Sustainable Development Goal Framework 2016-2030, the Pentagonal Strategy Phase 1 2024-2028, and the National Strategy Development Plan 2024-2028. This framework serves as the foundation for our progress in key areas essential to sustainable development. Cambodia has made significant strides in improving public health, reducing the maternal mortality rate to 154 per 100,000 live births. Essential health service coverage has reached 58% with an ambitious target of 80% by 2035. In response to emerging challenges, we have strengthened climate-resilient health system, integrating services that address demographic and environmental health risks. Advancing gender equality remains a cornerstone of Cambodia's development agenda. Women now represent 42% of the civil service workforce. With increased participation in leadership positions, 13.60% in the National Assembly and 17.74% in the Senate. Gender-responsive budgeting has been effectively implemented across key ministries, and digital literacy programs have expanded to rural women, empowering them with essential skills for their futures. Cambodia's economy continues to demonstrate resilience, maintaining a 5.8% growth rate in 2024 and projecting 6.0% for 2025. Our youth unemployment rate has declined to 0.78%, supported by skill development programs that harness our demographic divide. Social protective coverage has expanded, now reaching 41% of the population, ensuring a more inclusive labor market. To safeguard our marine ecosystem, Cambodia has protected 1.44% of its territorial water as marine protected area. The establishment of Koh Rong Marine National Park and Cape MFMA has secured 12,000 hectares of vital marine biodiversity. Additionally, we have successfully regenerated 2,000 hectares of seagrass, supporting both ecological balance and livelihood of fishing community. Recognizing the importance of the collaboration, Cambodia has attracted $2 billion in foreign investment by May 2024, reinforcing our commitment to sustainable development. We have enhanced data system for informed population development planning and implement the Development Cooperation and Partnership Strategy 2024-2028. Our engagement under the UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework 2024-2028 underscore our dedication to fostering multi-stakeholders partnership. To support policy decision, Cambodia has strengthened
request the delegate to kindly
demographic
wrap up,
intelligence
please.
system and enhanced data collection on the population development nexus. We are committed to increasing domestic resources mobilization for population programs, strengthening public-private partnership, and implement innovative financing mechanisms that address demographic challenges. Looking ahead, Cambodia is dedicated to deepening regional cooperation on population data system, fostering integrated approach that link population, environment, and development. We aim to accelerate progress toward achieving 80% universal health coverage by 2035 and expand regional financing mechanism for inclusive development. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Cambodia. I now invite the distinguished delegate from Armenia to be followed by the delegate representing G7+.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. Let me share our experience of VNR preparation process and multi-stakeholder engagement in it. After the Armenia's second VNR in 2020, the implementation of 2030 agenda faced a number of challenges deriving from the pandemic, acts of aggression, refugee crisis, economic hardships, and consequences of the climate change. Therefore, Armenia's third VNR was about the experience of resilience, humanitarian action, and steadfast efforts towards transforming the SDGs into real actions and building back better, with a strong emphasis on peace and justice at home and in the region. Given this context, we built our third VNR around the humanitarian development and peace nexus to take stock at the current level of implementation of SDGs, obviously with the emphasis on the SDGs under the in-depth review during the HLPF 2024, namely SDG 1, SDG 2, SDG 13, SDG 16, and SDG 17. Within the process of preparing the third VNR, the government of Armenia adopted the whole of society and whole of government approach and established a strong dialogue with the relevant stakeholders, including CSOs, private sector, youth, and academia. Initially, the VNR preparation team collected and analyzed the information on SDG implementation in the country from the relevant government agencies and elaborated the main storyline and structure of the VNR, which was then discussed during the 3 multi-stakeholder VNR consultations with the view of validating and gathering additional information on SDG implementation in Armenia and endorsing the VNR storyline and structure. Recognizing the importance of the data and evidence-based information, the quantitative data analysis was at the center of the evaluation of progress and regress in the SDGs. The data included reports and indexes generated by relevant international organizations, the National Statistical Committee, and local civil society organizations. Additionally, the UN ESCAP conducted supplementary data analysis to provide insights into which groups are further ahead and which are further behind in various SDG indicators. Also, UN ESCAP initiated the twinning program between Armenia and Nepal to facilitate a peer learning experience exchange. As landlocked countries, both Armenia and Nepal are facing a number of unique and structural limitations which constrains their sustainable development. In this context, the twinning program was an important element during the preparatory process of the VNR. Ladies and gentlemen, against all odds, Armenia maintained a steady pace of progress and sustainable development. Major economic reforms, effective fiscal policies, and inflation targeting contributed to the steady growth of the economy, with up to double-digit GDP and the overall improvement in the country's socio-economic outlook. This enabled the government to deliver on its promise of leaving no one behind. The overall unemployment rate in Armenia has decreased from 18.2% in 2020 to 13.3% in 2024. And the percentage of the population living below the national poverty line decreased from 1.1% to 0.8%, lifting thousands above the poverty line. Armenia is committed to building knowledge-based and inclusive economy, as well as comprehensive agenda for a green transition, with an equal focus on climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts in its pledge to implement Agenda 2030. I thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Armenia. May I now invite the distinguished delegate representing G7 Plus to be followed by the International Organization for Migration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The G7 Plus is intergovernmental organizations of 20 countries, including Timor-Leste, Papua New Guinea, and Solomon Islands from our region. We are united by a common vision for achieving sustainable development. Established in 2010 in Timor-Leste, founded on the pillars of solidarity and voluntarism, we pursue partnership through peer learning and collective advocacy. We have demonstrated our commitment to the realization of the Agenda 2030. In our fourth ministerial meeting in 2016, we agreed to jointly monitor the country progress on SDG and had organized a number of various technical meetings to discuss progress and challenges. Given our collective advocacy for the realizations of the Agenda 2030, the G7 Plus has obtained observer status at the United Nations in 2019. We promote our collective advocacy in various forums, both at the global level through the UN HLPF and UNGA, and also at the regional level, including through Asia-Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. This engagement helps us in sensitizing the aspirations and challenges facing by our member countries. At the heart of our advocacy is a firm demand for effective development partnership. As one of the 5 key elements of the Agenda 2030 is the realizations of partnership, determines the success and prosperity in the regions. Through the VNR conducted by our member countries, we have learned about the progress and challenges in achieving the aspiration of the Agenda 2030. Of course, every country context is very unique, but there are some common challenges that have often deterred and slowed down the progress on SDG. Timor-Leste VNR report, for example, has demonstrated that the country still has no data for 88 indicators out of 231, which is around 38%, and emphasized on the need for capacity building in data collection, analysis, as well as in monitoring. Similarly, Papua New Guinea VNR recognized that despite the integration of SDG in their development plans for provinces and districts, the availability of capacity is not enough to realize the SDG, and the need to strengthen the National Statistical Office in their data collection and disaggregated data. Solomon Island VNR has identified capacity building as a key priority for accelerating SDG implementation. Additionally, limitation in data pose a challenge, impacting the country's ability to accurately report progress on SDG. Against this background, we would like to call upon ESCAP to continue to provide support to our member countries in those areas that I just highlighted. I would like to conclude by reiterating that I hope through this forum we all can continue working together to support countries, including members of the G7 Plus, in their progress toward SDG. I thank you for all of your attention.
Thank you, distinguished delegate representing G7 Plus. I now invite the distinguished delegate of IOM to be followed by the collective statement of APRCM.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. When the world leaders agreed on the Pact for the Future last September, they included their commitment to harnessing migration's contribution to sustainable development in both their home and host countries. Indeed, the 2030 Agenda cannot be achieved without safe, orderly, and regular migration. Over the past years, we have seen the increase in the inclusion of reference to human mobility in the voluntary national review reports, which reflects member states' recognition of positive contribution of migration to sustainable development. For example, the Lao People's Democratic Republic's BNR report last year featured a dedicated section entitled Migrants, outlining the Lao government's priorities, including to raise awareness about the linkages between migration and sustainable development, and also improve the quantity and quality of migration-related data that can serve the SDG achievement, including on labor migration, environmental migration, irregular migration, and forced displacement. Many other BNRs, too, include references to migrants and remittances, and also discuss internal displacement, trafficking in persons, ethical recruitment, and return. To further enrich the BNRs, we call on all member states to adopt a whole-of-government, whole-of-society approach to SDG data gathering and collective planning, including more robust engagement with the private sector. Good practices are already emerging in our region in this regard. For instance, several countries are developing reporting requirements for the business sectors on human rights to inform actions under SDG 8 to eliminate modern slavery and protect migrant workers. Under SDG 11, our International Organization for Migration IOM has joined forces with Microsoft to assist the government of Maldives in using artificial intelligence to address climate-induced displacement to identify both risky and safer areas for guiding migration and climate adaptation policies. Distinguished delegates, incorporating migration into VNRs enables governments to recognize human mobility's multifaceted contribution, address challenges, and develop and implement policies that harness migrants' full potential to contribute to sustainable development. IOM also, as the coordinator of the UN Network on Migration, stands ready to continue supporting member states in this vital endeavor. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. I now invite the delegate for APRCM to be followed by the distinguished delegate for FAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a co-founder of a local NGO in Mongolia, I'm speaking on behalf of the Asia-Pacific Regional Civil Society Engagement Mechanism. A meaningful voluntary national review must go beyond progress reporting on select few goals under review, focusing on other goals along systemic barriers for holistic review. We demand development justice that emphasizes 5 interlinked pillars: redistributive justice, economic justice, environmental justice, social and gender justice. Last but not least, accountability to the people. Here are our collective recommendations. First, shift the VNRs from GDP-driven narratives to assessing how economic gains reduce poverty, systemic inequalities, prioritizing equity and justice. Ensure marginalized communities are not overshadowed, upholding leave no one behind principle. Let this pledge not just end as lip service. Second, adopt human rights-based approach to guarantee marginalized voices are heard, ensuring open and inclusive spaces for public participation to create protective civic spaces. Third, ensure transparency and access to disaggregated data by gender, ethnicity, and income. And also incorporate citizens-led data to reflect on on-ground realities while improving much-needed data availability through data democracy. 4. Ensure integration of SDGs at subnational and local levels, ensuring VNRs and data to identify gaps, improve implementation, and review for localizing the SDGs. 5th, deepen engagement with women, youth, indigenous people, LGBT+ individuals, and persons with disabilities, among with vulnerable groups, ensuring their perspectives shape policies and amplify marginalized voices. 6th, ensure meaningful engagement at all VNR stages, from planning and data collection to analyze, implementation and monitoring, and even review, We want to be part of all this. Establish national level mechanism for stakeholder inputs and also feedbacks to strengthen systemized meaningful civil society participation. 7. Transform VNR into concrete action plan with measurable targets, allocated resources, and accountability mechanism to track progresses. 8. Institutionalize multi-stakeholder participation by guaranteeing continuous engagement with civil societies, trade unions, marginalized groups, and SDG reporting and policy making through regular consultation. It's simple. Development cannot be just statistic. It must be translated into an inclusive, just, and equitable reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, distinguished delegate. May I now invite the distinguished delegate of FAO, which will be the last intervention for this segment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. An inclusive and integrated approach to the analysis of the progress towards the 2030 Agenda, shifting from an SDG by SDG review to an integrated analysis, is essential for understanding the interconnectedness of challenges and identifying comprehensive solutions for transformation. FAO support for voluntary national reviews focuses on several key areas that collectively contribute to a more impactful review process. At the center of this focus is an integrated approach that emphasizes agri-food systems transformation, recognizing that achieving sustainable agri-food systems is crucial to accelerate the SDGs and critical to addressing broader social, economic, and environmental challenges. By encouraging discussions around the interdependence of these challenges, FAO supports member nations in identifying and addressing the root causes of unsustainable practices and policies. In this context, we also promote the participation of a diverse set of stakeholders in the VNR preparation process, enhancing awareness of the key role agri-food systems play in achieving sustainable development, and small-scale farmers are at the center of these stakeholders. To assist both countries and FAO country offices, the FAO has developed a suite of tools, including an e-learning course and a guidance document designed to support the preparation process for these reviews, which we encourage member states to utilize. More needs to be done in these years learning before 2030. Connecting the VNRs with other global and regional reporting mechanisms is another way to enhance their effectiveness. Aligning VNRs with frameworks like voluntary local reviews provide a more holistic view of progress, capturing both national and subnational achievements and challenges. Finally, countries could report on cross-sector policies that they drive systemic change and transformation, especially in key areas like agri-food systems, climate resilience, and sustainable agriculture. In addition, fostering partnerships and mobilizing innovative financing are crucial to driving sustainable development. Detailing efforts in building partnerships and leveraging financial resources will support systemic change, ensure that voluntary national reviews contribute meaningfully to the long-term achievement of the SDGs for all. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. With this, I now close the agenda item 3, which is on VNR review. And I would like to thank you all for your contributions to this agenda item. And this afternoon at 1 p.m., 2 SDG roundtable discussions will be held, specifically on goals 3 and 8 in parallel, followed by the roundtable on goal 17. Tomorrow, the SDG roundtable discussions will be on goal 5 and 14 from 9 a.m. in the morning till 11:15 a.m. in the morning. Complete SDG profiles for each of the goal are available on the APFST website, and the forum will resume in plenary tomorrow in the afternoon at 1:30 p.m. in the ESCAP hall to discuss agenda item 4. There are a number of side events during the lunch break which you may be interested in attending. Kindly refer the list of side events including their registration details that have been posted on the forum website. So with this, I would now like to invite the Secretary to make some housekeeping announcements before the closure of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned, we have the side events before the round tables, before the lunch break. And as you can see on the slide, we also have the round tables, as the Chair mentioned, starting from 1 p.m. to 5:45 p.m., SDG 3, SDG 8, and SDG 17. Tomorrow morning from 9 a.m. to 11:15 a.m., we will have 2 remaining SDG roundtables on SDG 5 and SDG 14. And as mandated by the Commission, the Secretary provides delegations with the opportunity to assess the results and quality of the session through a feedback questionnaire. And please take a few minutes to complete the online evaluation survey being shown on the screen. It will help us to enable to improve future forums and events. Thank you.
Thank you. So with this, the meeting is adjourned.